The moment my parents regretted choosing my incompetent sibling over me. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My parents, who said I'd never succeed, asked if I could save them. That was the first sentence my brain managed to form when I opened my door and saw them standing in the hallway of my apartment building, wildly out of place among the peeling paint and flickering fluorescent light. Mark had his church suit on, like he'd dressed for court. Diane clutched her purse like a life raft. Neither one of them had visited me in 3 years. "Evan, we need to talk," Mom said, eyes already wet. They'd always called my job keyboard janitor. I work IT for a hospital system, patching software, recovering lost charts, making sure nothing crashes when someone's on an operating table. It's not glamorous, but it's stable, union, and I have health insurance that actually works. My parents call it settling. "Is Kyle okay?" I asked, because of course this had to be about him. Dad's jaw twitched. "Can we come in? This isn't a hallway conversation." My living room is small enough that when they sat down, they took up half of it. Dad didn't comment on the thrift store furniture for once. Mom looked around like she'd never considered I had a life that existed without them. "We're in trouble," Dad finally said. "Serious trouble. Financial. Legal." The word legal landed like a brick. My rent was paid, my car old but reliable. I had savings. I had nothing they'd want, except, apparently, competence. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "You have Kyle? He's the chosen genius, remember?" Dad winced like I'd slapped him. Mom whispered, "Please, Evan. It's about Kyle. He made some mistakes. The house, the business, our accounts, it's all tangled. We thought maybe with your computer skills." They weren't here to apologize. They were here because their star player had fumbled the ball straight into a wood chipper. I said, very calmly, "Tell me exactly what Kyle did." If you'd asked anyone in our suburb who this successful son was, they would have said Kyle without hesitating. He was the varsity quarterback, the guy in every yearbook photo, the one teachers called natural leader. I was the kid who fixed the AV card when it ate a tape. Our whole childhood was a script. Kyle breaks something. I fix it. Kyle gets praised for learning a lesson. When he crashed Dad's truck into the mailbox, I helped him patch the bumper and repaint the dent. Dad clapped him on the shoulder. "That's initiative, son." When I brought home straight A's, Dad said, "Of course you did. That's the bare minimum for you." Mom's favorite line was, "Evan doesn't need help. He's responsible. Kyle needs the boost." Boost meant paying Kyle speeding tickets and tuition for a major he never finished. Boost meant co-signing loans and investing in his string of doomed business ideas. My boost was a used laptop when I got into community college because we're still paying for your brother's opportunities. The most recent humiliation before they showed up at my door had been at a family barbecue, 6 months earlier. I'd just been promoted to senior systems analyst. It came with a decent raise and more control over my schedule. I was proud enough to mention it. "That's nice, honey," Mom said, already turning to Kyle. "So, tell everyone about your new startup." Kyle, beer in hand, launched into some jargon salad about disrupting logistics with AI-powered something. Dad interrupted me mid-sentence to call for a toast to our entrepreneur. When Aunt May tried to congratulate me on the promotion, Mom literally tugged her arm away to demand she listen to Kyle's pitch. Later that night, in the kitchen, I'd said quietly, "You know most startups fail, right? Maybe you shouldn't keep pouring money in." Dad didn't even look at me as he rinsed a plate. "That's loser talk, Evan. Some people play it safe. Some people play to win. We're backing a winner." I had no idea that decision would eventually risk their entire future. The first red flags about Kyle weren't even subtle. He flunked out of his first college after 2 semesters because he didn't vibe with his professors. The second college he left on principle because they didn't understand innovation. Each time, my parents blamed the school. "It was a bad program," Mom said, on the phone, while I ate microwave ramen between shifts. They didn't support his creativity. Meanwhile, I was juggling part-time help desk work and night classes. When I overslept and was late once, Dad called to say, "You can't afford to slack, Evan. You don't have Kyle's talent to fall back on." In his mid-20s, Kyle tried flipping houses. He posted glamorous before and after shots on Instagram, except the after was always staged with borrowed furniture and shot from one forgiving angle. Vendors complained in the comments about unpaid bills, which he deleted. Mom called them jealous trolls. Then came the consulting firm. No one could explain what they consulted on, exactly. But there were photos of Kyle in suits, standing in front of rented conference rooms, talking to maybe 3 people. The first time I realized other people were paying for his bad luck was when Aunt May called me. "Did you know Kyle Stiff the plumber?" she asked. "No, but I'm not surprised," I said. "He told Mark he'd already paid, and the guy lost the check." I ran into the plumber at the grocery store. "He's 2 months behind on his own mortgage because of that bill." I remember thinking, that's messed up, but also, not my circus. I was exhausted from cleaning up everyone else's tech messes already. So I pulled back. I stopped going to family events as often. When they raved about Kyle's hustle on Facebook, I muted the thread. I told myself his train wreck of a life would stay on its own track. The first time I saw my name on his paperwork, I laughed. It was a blurry photo, texted by Aunt May. "Thought you should see this, kiddo," she wrote. The image was a contract on Mark's kitchen table. I zoomed in. My last name, our address. Then my first name, printed neat and wrong. Middle initial off by 1 letter. A scrawled signature that looked vaguely like mine if you squinted in the dark. "What is this?" I called her. "Something Kyle had your folks sign for the business," she said. I asked if you'd agreed. Mark said, "It's just a formality. Evan will support his brother." I drove to their house the next day, anger prickling under my skin. Dad greeted me at the door, surprised. "Did you co-sign something for Kyle?" I asked, not even sitting down. His jaw tightened. "Evan, don't start." "I didn't sign anything," I said. "That's identity fraud. It's illegal. You realize that, right?" "It's family," Mom chimed in from the hallway. "We're just helping him get his business to the next level. The bank needed a guarantor. It's not a big deal." "You used my name," I said, voice shaking. "Without asking. That is a big deal." Dad stepped closer, using his height like a threat. "You're overreacting. You've got a stable little job and no real responsibilities. The least you can do is back your brother's dream." I looked at Kyle, sprawled on the couch, controller in hand. He didn't even pause the game. "Chill, man," he said. "It's all upside. When this thing takes off, we all win." That was the conversation where something in me cracked. "I'm not your backup plan," I said. "You ever sign anything with my name again, I'll call the bank myself and report it." Dad's face went cold. "If you're not with us, you're against us." 3 weeks later, they announced they'd officially transferred operational control of Dad's small logistics company to Kyle so he could grow it. I didn't realize they'd already signed something using my identity as collateral. After the business transfer, everything between us snapped like an overstretched rubber band. When Dad informed me, it wasn't a discussion, it was a victory speech. "This is how legacy works," he said over Sunday dinner. "You build something, then you hand it to the child who can take it further." I was invited, apparently, to witness the coronation. Kyle clinked his beer bottle against Dad's. Mom wiped away proud tears. "What about me?" I asked quietly. "I offered years ago to help modernize your systems. For free. You said it wasn't necessary." Dad shrugged. "You're good at your little job, Evan. But you think too small. Kyle understands scale." "Scale?" I repeated. "He's been bankrupt more times than he's finished anything." Mom gasped. "Don't be cruel. Your brother is trying. Not everyone is wired like you." Aunt May cleared her throat. "Mark, maybe you shouldn't." "Stay out of this, May," Dad snapped. On the drive back to my apartment, I decided. No more be the bigger person. No more volunteering tech support. No more showing up to be ignored. I pulled away hard, stopped answering every call, stopped offering advice that would be dismissed anyway. Life got quieter. My 1-bedroom felt bigger. I threw myself into work, into certifications, into building something that belonged only to me. I hit the gym, started cooking instead of living on takeout. On lonely nights, I'd scroll past Kyle's curated photos and block the urge to comment. Who paid for that? At the next Christmas, I showed up late, left early, and brought my own car so no one could strand me. Kyle bragged about closing a 6-figure contract. Dad laughed at my Corolla and called it Evan's training wheels. Aunt May caught me as I put on my coat. "You need to protect yourself," she said softly. "Your credit, your savings, your heart. They've tied themselves to Kyle's boat, and it's leaking." Back then, I still believed distance would keep me safe from them. Distance worked for about a year. Then the rumors started. Not online. Those Kyle could curate. but in the places Instagram didn't reach. A guy from high school messaged me. "Hey man, didn't your brother open a warehouse on 12th? My cousin worked there, said people stopped getting paid." I ignored it at first. Not my problem, I told myself. I'd blocked half my family on social media to keep my blood pressure reasonable. But the whispers multiplied. A nurse at the hospital mentioned a shady delivery company that lost medical equipment for weeks, blamed traffic, then ghosted the invoice. The company name sounded uncomfortably familiar. Dad's old logo, slightly rebranded. One night, Aunt May called, voice tight. "Evan, I think you should know. There was almost an accident." My stomach dropped. What happened? "One of Kyle's drivers fell asleep at the wheel. Overworked," he said. "They crossed the center line. Nobody died, thank God, but there were injuries." The police report listed the company as underinsured. Diane's been pretending it's exaggerated, but she exhaled. "You know how your parents are with details." A few days later, I swung by my parents' house after work. I told myself it was just to drop off some leftover Christmas gifts. Really, I wanted to see with my own eyes. The house looked the same from the outside, but up close you could see the cracks, paint peeling near the garage, a dead patch of grass where Dad used to obsessively mow. Through the window, I saw a stack of unopened mail. "Everything okay?" I asked when Mom opened the door. "Of course," she said too quickly. "Just a rough quarter. Kyle's handling it." Behind her, on the kitchen counter, I spotted a red-bordered envelope addressed to occupant. The bold letters across the front said notice in thick black font. Mom followed my gaze and slid the mail out of sight. "We're fine, sweetie." When I saw the eviction notice, my own chest went ice cold. It wasn't technically an eviction notice. It was a foreclosure warning. Different word, same nausea. I went home and did what I do best. I opened my laptop. First, I pulled up public property records for my parents' address. I expected to see the modest mortgage they'd nearly paid off years ago. Instead, I found a second mortgage taken out 2 years prior. Then a line of credit in the 6 figures, opened 18 months ago. Both had my father's and mother's names on them. "Jesus, Dad," I muttered. He'd always hated debt. He used to brag about paying off the house early. Next, I searched business records for Dad's old company. The ownership transfer to Kyle had gone through, and then there was a cluster of filings. New LLCs, dissolved LLCs, name changes. It looked like someone playing shell games with paperwork. I broadened the search to include my own name. That's when I found it. A UCC filing listing Evan Marshall as a guarantor on a business loan for one of Kyle's companies. The middle initial was still wrong, but the social security number attached was mine. I stared at the screen, so long my eyes blurred. "I never signed this," I whispered. The next day, I took time off work and visited the bank where the filing originated. The lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and anxiety. A woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Sandra listened while I explained. "I think my information was used without my consent," I said, sliding the printed document across. She typed for a long time, frowning at the monitor. "Do you have identification, Mr. Marshall?" I handed her my driver's license, pulse loud in my ears. Her gaze flicked between the screen and my ID. "We might need to escalate this," she said. "Because if this signature isn't yours, then someone committed fraud, and your parents are attached to it too." My mouth went dry. "How bad is it?" She hesitated, lowered her voice. "Let me just say, you're not the only one he's dragged into this." The woman across the desk whispered, "You should really check your credit." Checking my credit felt like opening a door in a horror movie. I already knew something was on the other side. I just didn't know how many teeth it had. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot and pulled up my credit report on my phone. The numbers were lower than they should have been, but not catastrophic yet. The real damage was in the details. Inquiries I didn't recognize, a store card I'd never opened, a business card with a limit high enough to make me choke. The address for that card matched one of Kyle's LLCs. Rage and betrayal fought for space in my chest. All those years they'd called me paranoid for setting boundaries, and meanwhile, their golden boy had been wearing my identity like a spare jacket. I requested full statements, then drove to Aunt May's. She made coffee like we were preparing for a wake and spread the papers across her dining table as they came in over email. "Look at the dates," I said. "Half of these charges line up with Kyle's business trips. There were hotel stays, rental cars, bar tabs. Payments to online gambling sites disguised under generic billing names. Transfers labeled reimbursement to family. On one statement, a large cash advance corresponded exactly to the week Dad showed off a new truck the company had bought. That's a lot, Aunt May said quietly. We dug deeper. In one folder, I found invoices from vendors stamped past due, addressed to the company, but CC'd to my parents' home. In another, emails where Kyle promised to wire payment by Friday, 3 Fridays in a row. One message ended with, "My brother's in IT. He's going to help streamline everything. Don't worry. He's been using your name as a walking guarantee," May said. "He tells people, 'My brother's solid, my parents are behind me. It's safe.'" And they believed him, I said. Because why wouldn't they? They raised him to think he could never actually fail. I scrolled to a PDF tagged Guarantor Agreement Final. The signature block made my skin crawl. It was the same fake version of my name from the photo May had sent months ago. In one folder, I finally found the document that almost ruined my life. The Guarantor Agreement Final wasn't just some generic form. It tied me personally to a $250,000 line of credit. If the business defaulted, and judging by the past due notices it already had, the bank could legally come after my wages, my savings, even put a lien on any property I might someday own. My entire calm, boring, meticulously built life had a bomb wired underneath it, courtesy of Kyle and my parents' signatures. "I have to talk to them," I said. Aunt May nodded slowly. "You do, but not alone and not without a plan." The old me, the one desperate for their approval, would have marched straight to my parents' house and screamed until my throat tore. The new me opened a fresh document instead. I listed everything: dates, amounts, account numbers, documents. I scheduled an appointment with a consumer rights attorney and forwarded him the files. 2 days later, after he'd reviewed everything, we met in his office. He was a calm man with silver hair and a measured way of speaking that made my pulse slow down. "You have options," he said. "First, we notify the bank in writing that the signature is fraudulent and that you dispute the debt. Second, we strongly recommend you freeze your credit immediately. Third, you need to decide how far you're willing to go." "What do you mean?" I asked. "We can treat this as purely financial fraud and try to resolve it quietly," he said. "Or if the bank pushes back, this could become criminal. That means your brother, and possibly your parents, depending on their knowledge, could face consequences." The word criminal made my stomach twist. I pictured Mom's face, Dad's pride, Kyle's smug grin cracking into panic. "I don't want to destroy them," I said. "I just want my life back." He nodded. "Then you set conditions. You help on your terms. But understand this, Evan, if you do nothing, the people who deserve the consequences will happily let them land on you." That night, my phone lit up with Dad's name. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. "Son," he said, voice strained, "we need to talk about the bank. They're calling in the line of credit. Kyle says you're blowing this out of proportion, but just call me back. Please." For the first time ever, I heard my father sound genuinely afraid. I agreed to a family meeting on one condition: we'd do it at my apartment, not theirs. If they were going to beg for help, they could do it surrounded by IKEA furniture and the smell of my neighbor's cooking. They arrived together. Kyle came separately, 15 minutes late, wearing a blazer over a graphic tee, like a discount CEO. He high-fived my doorframe as he walked in. "Nice spot, bro," he said, looking around. "Feels very entry-level." "Sit down," I said. Dad started with bluster. "We're all adults here. No need to make this a witch hunt." "I'm not hunting witches," I said. "I'm protecting myself." I laid out the printed documents on the coffee table: the fraudulent guarantor agreement, the credit card statements, the UCC filing. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad's face went from red to gray. Kyle rolled his eyes. "Oh my God, you printed everything," he said. "Dude, you're being dramatic. It's just leverage. Everyone does it." "Everyone doesn't forge their brother's signature and pawn their parents' house," I snapped. Mom whispered, "Kyle, tell me you didn't." He shrugged. "Look, the bank needed a guarantor. Evan's got the safest job. It was temporary. Once the contracts hit." "What contracts?" I demanded. "The unpaid ones, or the ones from vendors you stiffed." Dad glared at me. "Watch your tone. Your brother is trying to build something. Sometimes you have to bend the rules." "Bend?" I said. "Dad, there was almost a fatal accident. Your company, his company, is underinsured. If someone dies next time, they're coming after all of you. And thanks to this, I tapped the paper. They're coming after me too. The room buzzed with anger and denial. Mom pleaded for everyone to calm down. Dad accused me of sabotaging my brother out of jealousy. Kyle claimed he'd been forced to use my name because I refused to be part of the team. Then Aunt May, who I'd invited and who'd been quietly sipping tea in the corner, set her cup down. Enough, she said. Mark, Diane, your house is in foreclosure. Kyle forged documents. Evan is the only one here behaving like an adult. The silence after that was heavy and brittle. If Aunt May hadn't spoken up then, I might have surrendered everything again. After the meeting, my parents left in stunned silence. Kyle stormed out, shouting over his shoulder, "You'll regret this when I make it big." Aunt May stayed behind to help me collect the papers. "They're scared," she said. "Scared people double down on bad choices. Be careful." A week later, Dad called, his voice tight but oddly formal. "We've made an appointment with a financial advisor," he said. "We want you there. Kyle too. Maybe we can sort this out." My instinct was to refuse. But my attorney's words echoed in my head. "You set conditions. You keep control." "Fine," I said. "But we're not doing some backroom handshake. We're doing this with someone neutral present. I want everything explained in plain language. And I'm bringing my own documentation." Dad sighed. "Always have to make everything so complicated." The financial advisor turned out to be a mediator at a small law office downtown, a compromise Aunt May had apparently pushed for. The waiting room smelled like coffee and printer ink. Diplomas lined the walls. It was the kind of place where problems got names and numbers instead of excuses. While we waited, Kyle leaned over. "You know you're overreacting, right? They're old. You're stressing them out." "You forged my name," I said. "You stole my credit. You risked their house. This is me underreacting." He smirked. "You always did love playing martyr." The mediator, a middle-aged woman named Carla, led us into a conference room. She explained that her job was to help us understand the situation and explore options, not to take sides. "So," she said, folding her hands, "let's start with the big picture. Who can summarize the current financial issues?" Everyone looked at everyone else. No one spoke. "Fine," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a neatly organized binder, tabbed and highlighted. I wasn't just there to listen. I was there to flip on the floodlights. None of them knew I'd already emailed the entire file to the mediator. Carla opened the email on the wall-mounted screen. My binder became pixels, the loan documents, the forged signature, the overdue notices, the credit reports, the near-accident police summary Aunt May had helped me obtain. "We'll go through these one at a time," Carla said. "I want to make sure everyone understands the implications." Mom flinched at the word implications. Dad crossed his arms, but didn't interrupt. Kyle leaned back like this was all beneath him. When she reached the guarantor agreement, Carla paused. "Mr. and Mrs. Marshall," she said, "did you witness your son Evan sign this?" Mom's eyes filled with tears. Kyle brought it over. He said Evan had already agreed at the bank. We just signed where they highlighted." Carla turned to Kyle. "Is that accurate?" He gave a lopsided grin. "Look, does it matter who signed what? It's all family. We're on the same team. It matters legally." Carla cut in, voice sharpening. "If that signature was not Evan's, this is fraud. The bank can pursue this. Law enforcement can pursue this. And Evan can pursue civil remedies against the responsible party." The color drained from Mom's face. Dad swallowed hard. "Evan wouldn't do that," Mom whispered. "He's not like that." I stared at the table. "I haven't decided what I'll do yet." We moved on to the business debts. Unpaid vendors. Taxes filed late, if at all. Underinsurance on vehicles. Carla kept her tone neutral but firm, translating every euphemism into a consequence. "Best case," she said, "this is bankruptcy and damaged credit. Worst case, if someone is hurt again, it's lawsuits, potentially criminal negligence." Kyle snapped. "This is ridiculous. Every entrepreneur takes risks. Sometimes you juggle accounts. Nobody got hurt." Aunt May spoke from the back of the room. "Not yet, but they could have. And Evan's been the safety net without even knowing." The room went quiet. Carla folded her hands again. "Evan," she said, "up to this point, you have been the most transparent party here. But moving forward, you'll need to decide. Are you willing to participate in a structured plan to address these issues? Or do you intend to separate yourself legally and financially as much as possible? My parents looked at me like I was the judge at their sentencing. Kyle glared like I was the snitch. When my mother finally asked, "Evan, is that true?" I almost lied. "I'm not deciding today," I said instead. "But I'm done pretending this isn't serious." Carla nodded approvingly. "That's a boundary. Boundaries are healthy." The session continued with numbers, timelines, and potential strategies. Liquidate assets, sell the house, negotiate settlements with vendors, file for bankruptcy protection for the business. Each option came with a cost. Each cost peeled another layer off my parents' denial. By the end, Mom was openly crying. Dad stared at the table like it had personally betrayed him. Kyle had cycled through anger, charm, and victimhood so many times he looked exhausted. Outside, in the parking lot, Dad caught my arm. "Evan," he said, voice rough, we made mistakes." I almost laughed at the understatement. He swallowed. "We believed in your brother because we thought he needed it more. You were always fine. Safe. You didn't need us." "I needed you not to sign my life away," I said. He flinched. "You're right. I was wrong. I chose the wrong son to trust with the business. I see that now." There it was. The confession I'd fantasized about hearing as a teenager, a young adult, a burned-out IT tech listening to my father brag about Kyle. It landed like a brick, not a bomb. "I'm sorry," he said, the words rusty on his tongue. "We are so damn sorry, Evan." Mom shuffled closer, eyes red. "We never meant to hurt you. We just thought Kyle would take care of us. He promised. And you always seemed so distant." "I was distant," I said, "because you made it clear I was a backup character in the Kyle show." She sobbed. Dad closed his eyes. "Will you help us?" he asked finally. "Not fix everything. Just guide us. Tell us what to do." I thought about my savings, my credit, my sanity. About the little apartment I'd carved out as a sanctuary. About all the times they'd called me a loser for not aiming higher, while their golden boy stacked lies like Jenga blocks. Hearing my father say those words hurt more than every insult combined. I didn't give them an answer right away. Old Evan would have rushed in, cape flapping, ready to patch every hole in the sinking ship. New Evan went home, fed his cat, and sat on the floor breathing until the shaking stopped. Over the next week, I talked to my attorney, HR at work, and a therapist I finally decided to call. I explained the situation in pieces, embarrassed by how ridiculous it sounded out loud. "So your family only comes to you when something's on fire," the therapist said gently, "and then blames you for using water instead of gasoline." "That sounds about right," I said. "We worked on boundaries that were more than just slogans. If I helped, it would be in writing, no co-signing, no using my credit, no access to my accounts. I'd guide them to reputable professionals, not be the professional. I'd attend meetings as an observer, not the sacrificial lamb." When I finally met my parents again, I had a printed list. "I will help you communicate with the bank and the vendors," I said. "I'll help you understand what the attorney and Carla are saying. But I will not put my name, my credit, or my money on the line for Kyle again. Ever. If that's a deal breaker, we're done." Mom nodded through tears. Dad stared, then slowly, painfully, nodded too. "And Kyle?" I asked. Dad's shoulders sagged. "He's moving out. We're selling the house. He'll have to figure things out on his own." It wasn't the dramatic disowning some people online would cheer for. It was messy, half-hearted, and years too late. But it was something. In the months that followed, I helped schedule appointments, sat quietly in meetings while professionals explained consequences, and watched my parents start to understand interest rates and risk instead of magical thinking. Kyle called me twice. Both times I let it go to voicemail. At work, I got another promotion. My manager pulled me aside. "You've got a knack for navigating complicated systems," she said. "We'd like you to lead a new project." For the first time, my future felt like something I actually owned. The foreclosure went through. My parents moved into a smaller rental across town. It was humbling for them, but livable. They stopped pretending they were one big score away from a yacht. They started tracking their expenses in a notebook I'd printed out from a budget template. Kyle bounced between couches, temp jobs, and excuses. Last I heard, he was working on a pitch deck in a different state. I kept my number, but I also kept my distance. Sometimes loving someone looks like picking up the phone. Sometimes it looks like letting it ring. Aunt May visits my apartment often now. We drink tea, gossip about TV shows, and sometimes, when the mood is right, We talk about the past like it happened to someone else. They really did you dirty, she said once, sighing. But you didn't let it define you. I did for a long time, I admitted. I spent years trying to be so competent they'd finally see me. And now, she asked. Now I'm just trying to be competent enough for me, I said. If they see it, cool. If they don't, that's their problem. I still feel a pang when Mom texts me a picture of a sunset outside their new place with the caption, "Wish we'd listened to you sooner." Regret looks heavy on parents who finally realized the pedestal they built was a trap. But there are good moments too. Early mornings when I drink coffee on my tiny balcony, laptop closed, phone on silent, knowing no one can sign my name but me. Moments when a junior coworker asks for advice, and I get to be the steady one without disappearing. If you grew up as the responsible one in someone else's golden child story, here's what I learned. You are not obligated to be their safety net just because you're good at catching falling things. You're allowed to step aside and let gravity teach what praise never did. So tell me, would you still chase their approval or finally choose yourself?